Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we're diving into the top 10 worst presidents in American history. Ranking presidents isn't just about listing bad decisions. It's about understanding the context, the pressures they faced, and the lasting impact of their choices. So, buckle up as we judge, analyze, and maybe even feel a little sympathy for the 10 presidents who earned the dubious honor of being labeled the worst of the worst. Our first contender is James Buchanan, often remembered as the president, who saw a civil war coming, but kind of just stood on the train tracks. Elected in 1856, Buchanan faced a nation already deeply divided over slavery. He believed secession was illegal, but also thought the federal government was powerless to stop it. His attempts at compromise only deepened the divide, and his inaction allowed the Confederacy to gain strength. By the time Abraham Lincoln took office, the nation was on the brink of war, a war that Buchanan had tragically failed to prevent. James Buchanan, a man often defined by what he didn't do, earns his spot on our list for his stunning lack of leadership during one of the most critical periods in American history. Next on the list is Andrew Johnson, the man who took over after Lincoln's assassination. Had some pretty big shoes to fill. Unfortunately, he tripped over those shoes and landed face first into some seriously bad policies. Johnson's approach to Reconstruction, the period of rebuilding after the Civil War, was deeply flawed. He opposed efforts to grant full citizenship and voting rights to freed slaves, vetoing bills that aimed to protect Black Americans' civil liberties. Johnson's actions, seen by many as sympathetic to the former Confederate States, ultimately hindered the progress of Reconstruction and sowed seeds of racial injustice that would plague the nation for generations to come. Johnson's clashes with Congress over Reconstruction policies eventually led to his impeachment by the House of Representatives. Though he narrowly avoided removal from office by the Senate, the whole ordeal cemented his place as one of the most controversial presidents in American history. Moving into the Roaring '20s, we meet Warren G. Harding, a man whose presidency was marred by scandals. Elected in 1920, Harding's administration quickly became synonymous with corruption. Remember the Teapot Dome scandal? Yeah, that was all under Harding's watch. This bribery incident involved the Secretary of the Interior, Albert Fall. Harding's administration was plagued by a string of scandals. His tendency to appoint friends created a culture of corruption. His presidency serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of corruption. Franklin Pierce, fueling the fire with the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Franklin Pierce takes us back to the issue of slavery with his disastrous support for the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. This act, intended to settle the question of slavery in newly acquired territories, instead ignited a firestorm of controversy and violence. The act essentially allowed residents of Kansas and Nebraska to decide for themselves whether or not to allow slavery within their borders. The whole thing led to a massive influx of pro- and anti-slavery settlers into Kansas, turning the territory into a bloody battleground known as Bleeding Kansas. Pierce's actions further inflamed tensions between the North and South, pushing the nation closer to the brink of civil war. Millard Fillmore. The Fugitive Slave Act and a Nation Divided. Millard Fillmore makes an appearance thanks to his staunch support for the Fugitive Slave Act. The Fugitive Slave Act, passed in 1850, was a deeply controversial piece of legislation that required citizens in free states to assist in the capture and return of escaped slaves. Fillmore, despite personal reservations about slavery, believed in upholding the law and preserving the Union. However, his enforcement of the Fugitive Slave Act ignited widespread resistance in the North, further deepening the divide between slave and free states. Fillmore's presidency serves as a reminder that sometimes, even with good intentions, upholding unjust laws can have devastating consequences. Herbert Hoover, the Great Depression and a Legacy Tarnished. Herbert Hoover's presidency became synonymous with the Great Depression, one of the darkest periods in American history. When the stock market crashed in 1929, plunging the nation into an economic abyss, Hoover's response was, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly what the doctor ordered. Hoover, a believer in limited government intervention in the economy, initially downplayed the severity of the crisis. As unemployment soared and millions were left destitute, Hoover's policies were seen as inadequate and out of touch with the suffering of everyday Americans. Though Hoover eventually implemented some government programs aimed at stimulating the economy, it was too little, too late. His presidency, forever linked to the Great Depression, serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of economic ideology, trumping the needs of the people. Richard Nixon. Watergate and the fall of a president. Richard Nixon, the man who famously declared, "I am not a crook," ironically, earns his spot on our list for being, well, kind of a crook. Nixon's presidency, marked by both foreign policy achievements and domestic scandals, ultimately unraveled under the weight of the Watergate scandal. In 1972, a break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters in the Watergate Hotel exposed a web of political espionage and dirty tricks orchestrated by Nixon's re-election campaign. Tapes of Nixon's Oval Office conversations revealed his role in the cover-up, leading to calls for his impeachment. Facing certain removal from office, Nixon resigned in disgrace in 1974, becoming the first and, so far, only U.S. president to do so. The Watergate scandal left a lasting stain on American politics, eroding public trust in the government and casting a long shadow over the office of the presidency. Ulysses S. Grant, From War, Hero to Scandal-Plagued President. Grant, the celebrated Civil War general, transitioned to the White House, but his presidency was marred by corruption. Despite his integrity, his administration was riddled with scandals tarnishing his legacy. Grant's lack of political experience left him vulnerable to corruption. He surrounded himself with friends, some of whom were corrupt. His presidency was marked by bribery, fraud, and abuse of power. Grant's loyalty to those implicated cast a shadow over his presidency. John Tyler, the president who turned against his own party. John Tyler earns his spot on our list for his contentious relationship with his own party and his controversial actions following the death of William Henry Harrison, whom he served under as vice president. When Harrison died, just a month into his term, Tyler assumed the presidency, much to the dismay of the Whig Party. Tyler, a staunch states' rights advocate, clashed with the Whig Party on a number of key issues, including the establishment of a national bank. His veto of bills that he saw as infringing on states' rights alienated him from his own party, leading to a political crisis and a deep rift within the Whig ranks. Adding to his controversial legacy, Tyler, a slaveholder himself, later aligned himself with the Confederacy during the Civil War, even being elected to the Confederate Congress. George W. Bush. The Iraq War and the 2008 financial crisis. Bush's presidency, marked by 9/11, took a controversial turn with the 2003 Iraq invasion. The Iraq War, based on WMD claims, became a costly and divisive conflict. The failure to find WMDs and the prolonged insurgency fueled anti-war sentiment. Bush's second term saw the 2008 financial crisis, the worst since the Great Depression. His administration's response, including TARP, faced criticism from all sides. Bush left office with low approval ratings, his legacy tied to the Iraq War and financial crisis. So, there you have it. Our list of the 10 worst presidents in American history. These presidents, flawed as they may have been, were products of their time, shaped by the social, political, and economic forces of their eras. By understanding the missteps, the miscalculations, and the outright failures of these presidents, we can hopefully avoid repeating them in the future. Thanks for watching. Do you agree with our list? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more historical insights.